this time I'm doing another interview in my series of interviews with thought leaders and expert practitioners in the data sphere. And this time it's Adrian Mitchell, who's the founder and CEO of Brijj. Brijj produce a project management software tool specifically for data analytics projects. And they've also released early this year a report called the Emotional Intelligence Report 2022, which surveyed data analysts and their managers on quite a detailed and varied scope of questions about them and about their motivations for being in the careers they're in and the challenges they face in their job roles and their wider careers. So I'll just start by welcoming Adrian to the interview and asking you firstly tell me a bit about Brijj and about Brijj's product. Is it fair to kind of put it in the kind of Jira sphere of tools, in the Jira family, in the project management tools?
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. When I'm trying to describe what Brijj is to somebody who hasn't been exposed to it before, that's exactly how I describe it. I say, you must have used Jira, you must have heard of Jira before. Brijj effectively sits in that same sphere. But our angle, our unique sales proposition, our idea is that Jira, while effective for, let's say, technical practitioners, so data analysts, is useful for them, it's not as useful, it's not as effective for business users. And in the analytics space, it's our belief, and our research shows, that the connection between those technical people, so data analysts, BI developers, data scientists, etc., so the connection between those individuals and the business domain experts is absolutely essential to actually delivering a successful project. So we've created a platform which is like Jira, but is actually designed with the business user in mind. So it's easy for them to use, so they don't try to avoid the system like I've experienced a million times in my roles, and effectively gives those technical people that robust system in place, but one that their customers will actually engage with.
Okay. What would you say are the features and unique selling points of Brijj which make it especially good for data analytics projects and appeal to the business users?
So firstly, on the appealing to the business users side, its design philosophy is what really underpins that. I mean, when you look at Jira, because it's highly, it's an incredible piece of software. It's highly customizable. It has pretty much every feature you could possibly want. What tends to happen is you have a lot of visual clutter, and you have a lot of features that are not required for the vast majority of data analytics projects. So what we did is we actually stripped away an awful lot visually from the platform and made it incredibly simple for the layperson to use. To give you an example, to make a request and actually run through a project, there's only actually 2-3 buttons in its entirety that a business person will ever have to interact with or get their head around or understand. It's what's called like an opinionated piece of software. Okay. We've based our methodology on CRISP-DM, the most popular and most consistently used methodology, and so therefore we're helping people go through that. And in terms of the specific features for the analytics side, what we've done is we've amalgamated a number of features from across a different number of platforms. So with Jira, you have Jira, then you have things like Confluence. So you have online documentation. We have an equivalent of that. We have features which allow business users to provide feedback on the actual actions and decisions that were made with a piece of analytics. So therefore, you join up the question, the requirements, the models, the actions, and the outcomes all in one space. So all of that data is available for you to understand. And that's something that you can build in Jira, or you could potentially build in other platforms, but it comes out of the box for us. It's ready made there. It's all best practice. All the data is linked. And obviously, because of that, we're the time to implementation and also the cost is significantly lower as well.
I had a look at it. What I especially quite find is a very good idea is the workload voting system, so people can vote for valid and worthwhile data analytics projects. I mean, Jira almost gets there with the watching system. So if 15 people watch an issue on Jira, it might one might naively hope that it pushes it up the queue, but often doesn't. But voting is more explicit and democratic. That sounds like a good idea. My question is kind of, can people downvote an analytics request project which looks like it's duplicating work or wasting people's time? And do senior stakeholders get double votes than non-senior stakeholders?
They're both very good ideas. The first point you've made there is something that we've been requested already before, and it's in the pipeline. However, there's a debate around the positivity of downvoting a piece of analytics, and what we mean by that is, if you're say you're a marketing manager in a business and you make a request for a piece of analytics that you need, should other people in the business be able to say that's not worth it when it's your need, it's your business area, it's what you require? I do agree though that the analytics teams should be able to deprioritize it, because that's obviously it's their responsibility. The second idea of having senior stakeholders have a higher threshold is actually something I've never heard before. So there you go. I'm gonna already a positive.
It's kind of a. I guess I'm thinking of I don't know, an American electoral college system where, I don't know, an enormous state gets 17 college seats, and I know a smaller state maybe get 4. I don't know,
it's a very good idea, because the reality is that in business some voices mean more than others, and so that's a good idea. I like it. Yeah.
I mean, and do customers and clients ever request for the voting to be disabled, just in case people feel kind of hurt that their requests aren't getting upvoted and there may be some gossip?
I do know that number of customers don't use the voting, and whether or not that's because of the reason you've given there, which is they don't particularly have the size or the need. But we haven't actually had anyone vote to disregard it, because to disable it, because one of our design ideas and one of our views on analytics is that is the default position, and so showing everyone within an organization every piece of analytics, every question that's being asked, within reason, obviously, enables people who may have not thought of the question or may not realize that piece of analytics is being done, and they can contribute or they can take advantage of it, is valuable. So I would be actually probably against the idea, again, this is the opinionated software aspect, of taking away the voting, because the more people who get utility from a piece of analytics, by definition, the higher chances of it being classed as success and of it having an impact across the organization.
Interesting, yeah. And just on, I suppose, as it relates to the software you created and your preference for how data analytics projects are briefed and requested.
Yeah.
Does it favour like a kind of a blank piece of paper, explain what you need as best you can, or does it try and segment the elements of the analytics request into data needs, business benefit or risk mitigation, and specific measure?
Yeah, so it errs to the former, right? And the reason for that is because one of our major pain points that we're trying to overcome is avoidance of a system. Now, our experience and our research shows that the more workload you put on a business user at the beginning of the process, the less likely they are to engage with your system. They'll go around it. They'll just send you an email. They'll approach your desk. They'll call you up. Yeah. Okay. So what we've done is we've created an intake process, which is very, very simple from the business user perspective, but it keeps the pertinent and important aspects there. So firstly, it simply asks, like a blank piece of paper, what do you want? Yeah, what do you want? Describe that as best you can. Then it forces the user to not say what you want, but to say what you are going to do with this output. Now, you and I will know, being data professionals, that often you get more value from knowing what the person wants to do than what they ask, because often what they ask isn't actually going to enable them to do what they want to do, and it's your expertise which allows you to do that. So we force the users, the requesters, so to speak, down that path. Then once you have that very, very high level summary of what you want, then the platform makes it very, very easy for both the data creator and the data user or requester to work on those low level requirements. So you can split that work into individual requirements in the next stage of the process, and you can have conversation and collaboration at a requirement by requirement basis. So every piece of conversation or collaboration or discussion is directly correlated with a given requirement. So you never have, well, so you massively reduce the chances of confusion, of things not being validated and understood correctly. But again, to stop avoidance of a system, to make business users want to be involved in the system, we keep that as simple as possible. We also are working very hard right now on integration with other platforms. So some of our business users like to use Brijj to take in their work, yeah, but then they like to do the technical management of it in Jira or Azure DevOps, etc. elsewhere. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to work very hard on integrations so that when you intake work in Brijj, makes it really easy for your business customers, you can move it to a different platform very, very quickly, almost seamlessly, and then move back the results to Brijj so that your business users don't get overwhelmed by Azure DevOps or Jira or whichever highly technical platform you may have in your organization.
Super. Okay, shall we move on to the emotional intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which came out in January or February 22, I think.
That's right.
And it surveyed data analysts on their career satisfaction, their current job satisfaction, and what contributes or detracts from both of those. I thought it was, I have my own quite a lot of readings from the survey, which I'd like to discuss. But firstly, kind of what motivated you to host the survey, and what are your biggest takeaways and insights that you've got from results?
I mean, well, the reason that we conducted a survey is actually directly related to the reason why I started my business. So I've been in analytics for 16 years, and for 13 to 14 years of those, I've been a leader, I've been a manager of some description, working up to leading departments. And during that whole time, I've obviously managed a variety of different people, been exposed to a variety of different levels of skill and passion for the job. But one thing that I found consistent was that the vast majority of people in data love data as a discipline. They love what they do, but they have a relatively consistent problem with this feeling like their work isn't always appreciated and sometimes used. It just isn't used at all. And that was the problem that I was fundamentally trying to solve at the, at a mission level. Forgetting the business pains I'm trying to solve, the change I'm trying to enact in the world is to make the analytics role, the analytics discipline more satisfactory for everyone who works in it. So this emotional intelligence report was a natural piece of research or additional research that I wanted to conduct through my business in order to find out, firstly, to a greater degree, are data analysts happy in general? Are business intelligence people happy in their roles? What is it that makes them happy? What makes them unhappy? And what can businesses do to make sure that, what is commonly accepted as an incredibly important resource, and over the last 2-3 years and going to the future, an expensive resource, is more effective, more happy, and can be retained more easily, because it all links together. I'm trying to build a piece of software that makes data people happier, and so therefore I'm fundamentally interested in that as a concept. So that's why I commissioned and wrote and built this piece of research.
Yeah, and what's your biggest what surprised you most from it?
The biggest takeaway that I took was actually the two things. So firstly, the thing that had the biggest impact to me, although it wasn't a surprise, was the impact or the importance of making an impact for data analytics professionals. It's incredibly important to people in general, I think in any discipline, but especially in data and analytics, that they are doing something for a reason. There's a reason they're doing it. Being told to do something, getting paid to do it is not enough. There has to be some change, some kind of positive effect that they're having on their day-to-day. And so that was really important piece of information that I liked.
That's fair. That's very true. I think sales and marketing will have commission, and also the feeling of growing the business. Lawyers get people off or get people sent down. doctors save lives, and also, and I think there's Russian also kind of Solzhenitsyn said that in the Gulag archipelago that the way to truly send a man mad is not to kind of work them to the bone or impoverish them, is to have them in a gulag doing pointless work, moving say one bucket to another just for the sake of it all day. That's the way to
exactly.
Exactly.
And I think it's a really clever and important point. I mean, unfortunately, the people in data analytics and in the data space, we're cursed in the sense that often the impact we make, it's like a second order effect, right? We don't see it or make it happen. Someone else must do something with what we create, and then there is impact. And in too many organizations, especially large organizations, you send off a report, you create a model, you create a data set, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to talk about, and something sometimes does get done with it, and you never hear it. You haven't got a clue what's being done. And often you don't have the time to go chase to find out what's being done, because you've now got another 3 months work to do, rather than talking about the previous 3 months. So yeah, that was the first thing. I had a strong inkling, and our previous research has showed us that was important, that the level that it came out was really important to me, and it really impacted to me. The second thing, the second thing I want to talk about. Go ahead,
you go next. I'm just because I'm just going to come back to making an impact. But what was the second thing?
The second thing was the differences between what management think is important to their staff and what staff say is important. One of the things that I wish we could have done is get a big enough, respondent rate, a big enough N number, so that we could directly show managers what a manager thinks and their actual staff think, rather than managers in general and staff in general. However, it was really interesting to me that management seemed to have, or leadership seemed to have, a slightly skewed understanding of what really matters to their staff members. And it's really important, again, to make sure that you understand what your staff members care about, because by focusing on that, you give them more fulfilling work, which means naturally their productivity will go up, naturally their aptitude will go up, their desire to learn, and therefore in the medium to long term, their impact on the business's bottom line and your department's ability to prove its value will improve. And so that was the second thing that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, just on making it. Yeah, I think that's the most clear categories of factors that make staff happy in their career are, I think, the learning opportunities and the impact. And I think the leaders believe that the learning opportunities are more important, but actually the staff think the impact's more important than the leaders say it is. I guess it underscores the importance of defining a purpose of the team and feeding back the results against that purpose to the people working in it. I just want to unpick making impact a bit more.
Yep.
How do you, does that mean making a business impact, i.e. the results of a report change someone's mind or contribute to profit? Or could it also mean making a technical impact on a business? So having a key role in adoption of a BI tool from Excel, or in cleaning a really important data set, or in coming up with a new data model to solve a problem? Or is it both?
Well, I think it's absolutely both. But I think the important point here is that in either example, the individual who has created some kind of change has positively affected somebody else. Yep. So let's say you've got somebody who's created, they've moved a report or a piece of modeling from Excel, and they've now systemized this in a really robust and beautiful way. If they're the only person who directly feels that benefit, maybe their day's work is now reduced by 50%. They've got now more free time, or they're churning out more reports. This is obviously anecdotal, but my experience as a leader would show that doesn't provide the level of satisfaction and fulfillment as when an individual knows that other people in the business have been positively impacted by their work. So this is the reason why we've made that connection between, again, another reason why we're so obsessed with the connection between data creators and data consumers, because it's the consumers actually decide whether we like it or not. It's the consumers who decide whether or not what we've done is worthwhile, and whether or not we have value.
No.
I know it's a hard thing for some people to accept, that it's actually our customers who decide whether or not we're useful. But it is the unfortunate truth. And I think that truth is the reason why you've heard this stat go around all the time: 80% of data projects fail. You've probably seen that. It's all over everywhere. Now, to me, I look at 80% and I think, not a chance, because if I failed 80% of the time in my career, I wouldn't have had a job. Yeah. But the reason why I think there's this perception that 80% of data projects fail is because actually it's not us who decides whether or not a project has been successful or not. So to your point, I think both of those things definitely play a part in making an impact. But the key point is, most of the time, I believe, and my experience tells me, that it's the impact you make to others in the business that really makes a difference.
Really interesting. I mean, I just want to unpick also the way you, what's really clever about the survey is it asks the same question from two different angles. So it asks about motivations and happiness, satisfaction levels of data analysts and leaders, but also focus on the data analysts as regards the job they're in now and their wider career. And what I've noticed in the stats is that predominantly they're happy in both, and analysts, but the data analysts seem to be answering happy and very happy in their career higher than they are in their current role. So 38% of data analysts are happy in their career, very happy in their career, and then 26% are very happy in their current role. Is that, am I reading this wrong, but could that be because data analysts know that they have a high level of job security and a candidate for job market as skilled technicians, and do they often suffer from a grass is greener on the other side mentality when evaluating the frustrations of their current jobs?
Yeah, no, I think it's spot on. I think if we were to ask this question of any discipline, I think you'd see a similar result. I think people, they value the career choice they've made. They love the fundamental aspects of what they do. So for data analysts, that may be problem solving, that may be coding, that may be, being exposed to a number of different business departments and different questions. But then when they look at the cold, hard realities of their current roles, they spot the dissatisfaction or the problems that they have with that. I do think, though, that those results could give pause to organizational leadership, that they need to make sure that their staff are in an environment where they feel like they can flourish and where they feel fulfilled, because, as to your point, data analysts and people in data may be especially susceptible to the idea that the grass is always greener. And especially over the last year, and obviously we don't know what's happening with the economy right now. We may be on the verge of a recession, but the job market is very buoyant right now, and people can move very, very quickly and for more money very, very easily. That may change in the short term, but in the long term, over long time periods, that generally is the case, especially in the Western world. So that's something that I think leadership should take notice of, that there are many things that can make a data professional dissatisfied in their current role, and they're in a position of power right now, especially. I think expectations has a huge part to play in it, though. I think I don't know, you may have experienced this yourself in your previous job roles, but often a job is advertised as something that it is not. The amount of times I've spoken to people who have been hired as data scientists and they're actually reporting analysts at the end of the day is massive. So organizations need to make sure that what they're hiring for, they tell people that's what they're actually going to be doing. If you're going to be there's nothing wrong. In fact, I applaud people who are in Excel all day, every day. One of the greatest pieces of software ever made in the history of man. I will stand by that.
I think Excel VBA macro writing is the best programming language under the sun, and
exactly
what everything boils down to is unbeatable.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's highly positive. But if you're advertising for a role, make sure they know that's what they're doing. Because if you tell them they're a data scientist and that's what they're doing, they're going to get disappointed. They're going to get divided. And just these are just things that I think people need to pay attention to.
What I'd say is in a similar, but also I suppose just as bad as well, is when people hired as data analysts and they're expected to be providing business insight reporting, but they're also DBAs and data engineers and shadow IT as well. And often they find themselves building and maintaining core assets and feel suddenly become responsible for keeping the lights on, and not quite supported because they're not bona fide IT. They're using their best wits and perhaps not the right infrastructure for creating company data sets. And they feel like, well, actually, I'm a data engineer as well. But
exactly,
and I think that's a huge problem that.
You're absolutely spot on. That's a huge problem, and it does no one any good, because what ends up happening is you have dissatisfied staff, and then actually you as a business leadership are wondering why they're not churning out insights all day every day. Because they're not what they're doing. Yeah, exactly. So it's something that needs to be definitely focused on.
The importance of that comes through in page 12 of your report as well. You provide stats that show that where the jobs does not match at all, 50%. It impact it 50% of respondents say it makes their job satisfaction significantly worse, and in roles that match perfectly you get like a 55% response rate saying it exceeds their expectations. So it's
exactly, and you got 95% who say they're happy, and it meets. So it goes to show you that setting those expectations is incredibly important. And I understand why businesses do the opposite. I understand why businesses elevate what they're offering or what the job's going to be, because it attracts better candidates. But it's really counterproductive, and it there are many people out there who want to be a reporting analyst, right? They want to be a data analyst. They want to be a a Tableau visualization expert. But if you tell them they're a data scientist, they're going to expect different things. Yeah, they're going to expect different things. Yeah.
I just want to throw a bit of a curveball onto that though, because I picked up something I found interesting in two answers to by staff to the question you have on page 13, which is what fact has the biggest impact on your current job, and the fact that has the biggest impact on your career. Now, for the current job, data analysts say that learning opportunities is 24%. Is very, a quarter of them say learning opportunities is a big factor for their current job satisfaction. And then only 10% say making an impact is important for their current job satisfaction. But when you flip it around, when you ask that question about their career, then then the learning opportunities importance drops from 24% to 17%, and the making an impact doubles from 10% to 20%. So am I extrapolating too far when I say that data analysts see their current jobs predominantly as basically a sandbox, a kind of playground to kind of like master SQL, Tableau, and Python, and that the making impact is something slightly nebulous and theoretical, something they'd like to do at some point in their future, but only after they've kind of mastered use their company as a learning ground and master and become experts in their fields. And from that, could I even extrapolate those? Are data analysts secret wannabe software developers on a journey?
It's a very good point, and I think your reasoning and the idea you put forward there is perfectly possible, and it's very, very logical. I think it's absolutely could be that. Unfortunately, obviously, we didn't dive deep enough into that given question to be absolutely certain about the reasons behind that. I mean, an alternative view could quite simply be that when a person is thinking at their career level, like you say, they are thinking of a conceptual idea of, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what they're going to be, what their grand realization is going to be over their whole careers, making an impact. I want to be someone, I want to do something, like software, it's like software developers often think. And then when they're thinking about their individual job that they're in, they're thinking to themselves, what do I like about this job? What about this job is positive? And so for me, the takeaway from that is that despite data people saying that these higher level concepts are important to them, like making an impact, like their journey from being a junior analyst all the way, and learning opportunities that they get. Actually, the thing that directly affects them quite a lot now are tangible things like the company culture, like the courses that they're being put on, which give them that satisfaction that they're going to make an impact at some point in the future. These things are all things to consider and potential possibilities. I think the reason why we may be correct, though, is because if you look at that result on page 13, leaders say that making an impact is actually their third most positive thing that's happening to them. So they may be at the stage now where they feel like they're making an impact because they're part of the leadership team. Maybe they see the impact more than their staff do. So that's I think your point is absolutely positive. It's definitely something that could be considered. I mean, if you look at the negative impact, the thing that hurts their job satisfaction, obviously you can see leadership is the massive part. If you've got bad leaders, people are more likely to be unhappy. But again, tangible things like the company and team culture, that is also something that really, really matters to people in their current job. Yeah.
So it's been we've covered quite a lot of ground there, and I think we've unpicked about maybe 5 questions, 5 pages content worth out of maybe 20. So I invite anyone to check your website, Brijj.io, and download the report and read it. If you're a data analyst looking to get an expectation of how you feel in a role, if you're a leader looking to retain staff better, recruit staff, and grow your team. So
absolutely.
Hope you run the survey again next year and see how.
No, absolutely. We intend to. Yeah, we intend to run it every single year, see how things are changing, see if things are being improved. And to your point about anybody wants to download the report, I mean, it is for leaders, for data analysts of all different levels, but it's also, I would argue, for organizational leadership, even if that leadership is not actually in the data space. Because if you're spending money on data people, an expensive resource, which takes a long lead time to value, you want to make sure that you are building an environment and a situation and a set of policies and attributes to your organization and your job that is going to make them happy and make them more productive and make them want to stay. Because, as I said to you earlier, data people are incredibly valuable right now, and getting the right type of people is the be all and end all.
Yeah, excellent point to end on. Thanks, Adrian. Great interview.
No problem.